Hey, what's going on YouTube? Welcome to Post Cologne. Today we're going to be unboxing 3 new Maison Alhambra fragrances, including Tobacco Touch. So let's jump into it. Alright, so it's time for another unboxing and first impressions video of 3 new Maison Alhambra fragrances that I got in a recent haul. I'm going to have links down in the description if you decide you want to check any of these ones out, along with some coupon codes to save yourself $5 off your first purchase at either Fragrance Buy or Perfumes Online if you decide you want to shop with them. These are all within that Tom Ford kind of clone dupe inspired by series. I did unbox Porto Neroli about a month ago or so, and I really liked that one. So I am really excited about these 3. We got Tobacco Touch featured in this one. Really excited to try that one out. So let's quit screwing around. Let's get into it. All right, so first up, we got Maison Alhambra's Bright Peach. So I scooped this bad boy up for $23 at Fragrance Buy, and this is supposed to be a clone of Tom Ford's Bitter Peach, so I'm really excited to get into this one, so I'm not going to be rambling here. Let's just get into this, see what we got. All right, so there we have the box presentation for Maison Alhambra's Bright Peach. Nice thick cardboard to this. It is sticking with the Tom Ford clone line that Maison Alhambra is doing with this typical box packaging. Nice thick cardboard, has a bit of a texture to it. It is quite nice. All the necessaries on the back right there, and it is a slide off top like so, revealing our bottle. And they're really not trying to hide what they're doing here in terms of cloning the Tom Ford fragrances, because the bottle looks almost exactly like the Tom Ford versions of it. Nice orange bottle, really thick, heavy glass on this. Cap on this is a nice, thick acrylic plastic, but it is pretty lightweight, but I don't think I could break this as powerful as I am. I don't think I could crush this with my hand. So good quality on the cap there, even though it is kind of an acrylic plastic. An atomizer on this. Nice long sprays on this, good distribution, so I am liking that atomizer on this. But what does this smell like? So before I even get this on paper, just smelling it in the air from that atomizer, I am getting that peach, surprise, surprise. A nice kind of bittersweet style of peach. It's got a little bit of a tartness to it. I am picking up a little bit of orange kind of mixed in there, so it's got that kind of like orange citrus peel kind of sitting in there, but the peach is what's coming forward the most in the air right now. So really nice peach fragrance here, but let's get this on paper. Let's dig in a little bit more. Yeah, so like I said, right off the jump, you do get that peach note that's coming forward, and that the blood orange kind of orange is coming through a little bit too. So it's a little bit dark. It adds kind of like a bit of a darkness to it. And the peach has got that sweetness, but it's also kind of got that bitterness to it. It reminds me when you get kind of like when you're eating a peach and you get a little bit closer to the core, kind of the stone within the peach. That part of the peach is kind of what I'm picking up the most. Mixing with that blood orange, so it does have that bitterness to it. It has a little bit of darkness to it, but it does have that kind of fruit sweetness coming through. And there's a little touch of booziness that's coming through. It kind of has that kind of rummy cognac sort of vibe going on. Not really forward, not super boozy at this moment, but it is there. It's lingering in the background, giving it kind of a little bit of character, a little bit of kind of maturity to it, a little bit of a pop. It's really, really nice opening. As this is opening up a little bit more, it's getting a little bit kind of like a candied sort of vibe going on to it with those kind of fruity accords. It still has that bitterness that, again, it's not like super bitter, but it is kind of like towards the core of a peach as you get towards the kind of the stone of the peach. That sort of vibe, but it's got this kind of a little bit of a bitterness to it with those sweet notes, but it has this kind of like candy note that's coming through as well. And like almost like a honeyed accord. So like not like a straight up honey note, but it's got like this thickness that's starting to develop, and it just has like a little bit of a heaviness coming through. Really quite nice. Really nice mix of sweet accords right now with that little bit of bitterness, and that booziness is moving forward a little bit. Again, it's not a heavy sort of booze, but it's just adding that little kind of like touch around the edges, just giving it that kind of that gentlemanly sort of mature sort of vibe. I am also picking up a little bit of earthiness, maybe like a little bit of patchouli that's starting to move through. It's kind of a light patchouli, but it is adding kind of a little bit of green to it, a little bit of earthiness coming through. And it seems like there's kind of like a little bit of like soft floral that's kind of worked its way in as well. So it's mixing with those fruit accords, it's mixing with that kind of bitterness of that core of the bitter peach, a little bit of that honey kind of candied accord moving through, and a little bit of warmth. This is really quite nice. It's a really nice blend of those fruity notes with that kind of soft floral edge to it, that candied sort of vibe, as well as that kind of that warm, honeyed almost kind of accord coming through. Very, very nice. Really quite nice. Let's let this dry down, see how it kind of develops, but so far this is a really enjoyable fragrance. I can't stop smelling the paper. All right, so we are back with the dry down of Maison Alhambra's Bright Peach. been just over an hour. I've kind of let this settle down, do its own thing, and not much has changed, to be quite honest. It's still very much a peach fragrance, as you would expect. That kind of honeyed sort of thickness has dissipated quite a bit, and a lot of the notes haven't really stood forward as much as that peach does. It kind of reminds me of those fuzzy peach candies in a little way, but there is a little bit of earthiness that's worked in there. Again, a little bit of patchouli that's kind of worked through, but it does still have that kind of little bit of sour, a little bit of tart, kind of towards the core of a peach sort of peach going on to it, but it is a little bit sweeter. The kind of candied aspect of it has kind of come through, and that's kind of how it's settled in. But a little bit of patchouli in the background, like I mentioned. That blood orange has kind of disappeared for the most part, and that booziness that was kind of lingering in the background has really dissipated. And like I said, we're just kind of left with a really nice bright peach fragrance that's going on here. So really quite nice. This is a unisex fragrance. I think both males and females can pull this off. I think the ladies are going to enjoy this one for sure, because it has that kind of that fruity peach sort of vibe going on to it. But because there is a little bit of earthiness in this, maybe like a tad, a bit of woods that's kind of sitting really subtly at the base, this does still have a little bit of a masculine lean towards it. So I think this sits kind of right in the middle for a unisex fragrance. I think if you're a dude that kind of enjoys kind of more kind of fruit style of fragrances that can be a little bit sweet, a little bit sour, a little bit tart, I think you will enjoy this one, because it is a very nice peach, like a mouth-watering style of peach. And I think this is just gonna be great in the spring. It's a very fun style of fragrance. It's very kind of playful and just overall very pleasant and enjoyable. We'll do a full review on this one. Definitely curious to see how this one's gonna perform, but overall, pretty happy with this one. That's Maison Alhambra's Bright Peach. All right, up next we got Maison Alhambra's Lovely Cherry. Now I picked this bad boy up at Perfumes Online for $25, and you can also get it at Fragrance Buy for $21, but it is sold out at this moment. So again, I'm gonna have links down in the description to both sites so you can check it out. They may restock by the time you see this video. Pretty excited about this one. I like a good cherry fragrance. It's hard to kind of pull off a good cherry fragrance, but I'm excited for this one. This one is supposed to be a clone of Tom Ford's Lost Cherry. So again, let's just quit screwing around. Let's just get into this, see what we're dealing with. All right, so there we have the box presentation. I'm not gonna dwell on this too long. It's the exact same kind of box, just a different color as the Bright Peach from before. Same sort of bottle going on to this, same sort of cap going on to this. Let's hope the atomizer performs as well as the other one does. And it does, lovely. So what does this smell like? So right off the jump, smelling this in the air from testing that atomizer, you get a nice kind of black cherry accord that's coming through, but there's some nice like kind of rose that's coming forward. It's a little bit of a florally rose. It's almost a little bit feminine at this point, but the black cherry and there's like a bit of booziness coming through that's kind of balancing that out right now. But the rose, black cherry, a touch of booziness coming through right now in the air. So far so good, but let's get this on paper. Let's see what we're dealing with. So a very similar story happening on the paper right here. The cherry is very forward. It has more of that black cherry sort of vibe going on to it. It has a little bit of kind of a sour cherry, but it has like enough sweetness in it. So it's more kind of on the sweet side, that sweet black cherry kind of vibe going on to it. I'm not sure if it's sweet because there is that rose note that's coming through. So it's like a kind of like a pink kind of rose coming through. So it's got a little bit more sweetness, but it still has that kind of floral edge to it, kind of like a rose garden style of rose, but a little bit on the sweeter side. And there is a touch of booziness coming through, so like a little bit of like a kind of a cognac rummy sort of vibe coming through. It is sitting behind that cherry and that rose note right now, but it is a very sweet, very sort of florally, touch of sour coming through, and again with like a little bit of booziness coming through. Very, very nice cherry accord in this though. It is like a very realistic like maraschino cherry, black cherry, a touch of sour coming through. Really quite nice. A little bit kind of a syrupy vibe from that cherry going on. So like, you know, those maraschino cherries that come in the jar, it kind of has a little bit of that sort of vibe happening right now. As this is opening up a little bit, there is some vanilla that's starting to come through, and it is mixing with that sweet accord of the cherry. So it's kind of toning down that kind of syrupy vibe that was happening with the cherry, and that vanilla is starting to move in and kind of smooth things out a little bit. It's adding like almost a little bit of kind of a lighter weight to it, so it's not as like thick as that initial blast from that cherry is, but a really nice kind of scent accord coming through with that vanilla cherry combo coming on, like a really kind of a nice balance of two different kinds of sweet notes. You got the fruity sweet note, and you got kind of like almost a soft floral vanilla coming through. And that rose is starting to drop back a little bit into the background. It's not as rosy as it was in the opening, but it's still there, but it's taken a kind of a back seat to that cherry, that vanilla accord. And this is moving a little bit more masculine at this point. There is a bit of a bitter almond that's kind of lingering there. It was a little bit noticeable at the beginning. It was adding to that kind of cherry accord. I find sometimes like almond accords kind of have a little bit of that cherry vibe going on. It's starting to separate out a little bit, but it is kind of, again, sitting behind that cherry note. It's starting to sit behind that vanilla. There's a little bit of wood starting to come through, but overall, this is a really nice scent. Like, again, I said, I'm a fan of kind of cherry fragrances, but they can kind of be a little bit disappointing. They can really lean feminine sometimes. It's hard to pull off kind of like a unisex or a masculine style of cherry, and this seems like it's gonna do the job here. So let's skip to the dry down and see how this kind of develops, but so far, so good. All right, so we are back with the dry down of Maison Alhambra's lovely cherry. Been just over an hour, let this settle down, do its thing, and it has changed a little bit, but it is still very much that kind of black cherry forward style of fragrance. It has those floral notes that are still in there, so it still has that little bit of kind of a rosy sort of edge going on around it, so it has a little bit of that kind of floral sweetness to it, but that cherry is definitely the star of the show with this. The booziness has come out a little bit. I wouldn't say the booziness got stronger. I would just say the other notes kind of mingled in and settled in with it a little bit more, and you still get that kind of sweetness from the vanilla, a little bit kind of smoothing that out, kind of taking away that kind of syrupy aspect of that cherry that's in there. And there's some nice kind of dry woods that have kind of sat in the background, but it's given it this kind of base that kind of makes this a little bit more masculine. Like I said, cherry fragrances I find can really lean feminine because they do have that kind of sweetness to it, that kind of syrupiness to it. But this kind of dry wood that's very much sitting in the background, it gives it just enough of a masculine edge, along with that little bit of booziness that's coming through to kind of balance out against those floral notes, that it makes this a really nice cherry fragrance that men can definitely pull off. I do think this is still a unisex fragrance. I think the ladies can enjoy this one too, but I do think it kind of tilts a little bit into the masculine rim and doesn't quite sit on the, the middle part of the unisex. I do think it tilts a little bit on the masculine side, but ever so slightly. I think this is a great cherry fragrance. I'm definitely gonna wear this one. Again, this one's like the bright peach, has a little bit of a playful side to it, but there is a little bit more kind of a mysterious sort of vibe going on to it. I think it's with that dry woods and that little bit of booziness that's going on. This has like a little bit more darkness to it, a little bit more kind of a refined edge, whereas the bright peach was very bright and, playful. This one, a little bit flirty perhaps. Really, really nice. Gonna get this on skin, do a full review for you guys. Excited to see how this one performs, but overall, really happy with this. I like a good cherry fragrance, and this is a good cherry fragrance. That's Maison Alhambra's lovely cherry. All right, last, and hopefully not least, we got Maison Alhambra's Tobacco Touch. Now, I picked this bad boy up for $21 at Fragrance Buy, and this is supposed to be a clone of Tom Ford's Tobacco Vanille. I have like 3, maybe 4 clones, dupes, inspired buys of Tom Ford's Tobacco Vanille. So I'm curious to see what Maison Alhambra did with this one, see if it's kind of in that neighborhood, see if it kind of like holds up to the other clones. So let's just find out. Let's dig into this. All right, again, there we have the box presentation for Tobacco Touch. I do like this one. This one's got the more kind of a gentlemanly, like masculine style of coloring to it. But overall, same as the other boxes, nice thick cardboard, slide off top. And we have our Tom Ford inspired bottle sitting on the inside. Cap feels exactly the same as the other two, and the atomizer. Let's hope we go 3 for 3 on this bad boy. Atomizer is good. So what does this smell like? All right, so right off the jump, just smelling this in the air from testing the atomizer, definitely has that Tom Ford Tobacco Vanille kind of vibe going on to it. It reminds me a little bit of the Alhambra Number Oud Tobacco Edition with those spices right now. It's really got that kind of really nice spice going on to it with that kind of dried tobacco. Has a little bit kind of like a cola vibe in the air right now. So let's get this on paper, see what we're dealing with, but I'm liking this already. So right off the jump here, smelling this off paper, it is a little bit different than it is in the air. As you get closer to this, it has like, the spices are a little bit different, but it has some really nice warm spices. It has that tobacco working in there, and there's some sweetness that's kind of working its way in there. a vanilla, maybe a little bit of cacao working in there. It has like a little bit of a freshness, like a ginger note that's kind of in there. So it has like a little bit of a pop going on, but it is sitting behind some really nice warm spices and this kind of nice dry tobacco leaf going on. Beautiful tobacco fragrance. I really like me a good tobacco fragrance, and this is so far really nice. In the air, I was getting kind of almost like a clove note that was coming through. That's when I was comparing it to the Amber Oud Tobacco Edition. Off paper, I get more kind of a warm, spicy, like cinnamon, maybe some nutmeg that's working in. I'm not picking up that kind of clove that I was getting in the air as much, but it does have a really nice kind of warm, spicy, you know, cool weather, winter sort of vibe going on to it. Almost like a holiday sort of kind of blend of spices going on. And again, nice dried kind of pipe tobacco that's worked in there. It also has some kind of like nice dried fruit sort of accord going on. So it's not like a really sweet sort of dried fruit. But there's a dried fruit in there of some sort. It's like, it's not a raisin, but it's like that sort of level of sweetness. It's in the background right now. It's very interesting, but it adds like a nice little kind of touch to kind of round out the spices, round out the tobacco, but it is kind of like a dried fruit accord that's going on, and I'm having trouble picking up exactly what it is, but it is nice. Very nice, rich, warm spices that are worked into this. This is really, really kind of warm, spicy, not overbearing. It's just borderline kind of nose tickling spice, but it is really rich, very, very nice, very well done. Oh, really, really nice tobacco fragrance so far. Really liking the spices, liking that dried tobacco. There might even be a little bit of cacao that's kind of working its way through, kind of like a bitter sort of chocolate that's working its way through. But I'm liking how this is kind of opened and developed. That ginger's kind of fallen off a little bit. I'm not picking up as much of that kind of that freshness, that kind of like ginger sparkle sweetness that was initially kind of there. It's kind of faded into the background, but this is developing into a really nice tobacco fragrance. So let's skip to the dry down, see how this comes together, and go from there. But so far, I'm really impressed. All right, so we are back with the dry down of Maison Alhambra's Tobacco Touch. Been just over an hour. Let this one settle down, do its own thing. And this did change a little bit actually, and I'm kind of surprised on what direction this kind of went in, because the spices are very much kind of the star of the show here. I thought the spices might settle down a little bit and kind of share the stage a little bit with, you know, maybe some of that vanilla that was coming through or whatever. But it's still a very warm, spicy medley that's going on. Very rich spices. It's got kind of that almost like mulled cider holiday season sort of vibe going on to it. Pretty sure we got some cinnamon, some nutmeg, and perhaps some clove that's going on here. I do get kind of a clovey sort of vibe going on. But it does remind me of that kind of mulled cider style of spice that you kind of have around the holiday season, the Christmas season. But it still has that really nice kind of dry tobacco leaf going on. A little bit of woods poking through, and there is a touch of sweetness that's still coming through. So it's got that kind of pipe tobacco style of sweetness. A little bit of vanilla, but it's not like a super dominant vanilla. This is not a sweet style of fragrance. Dry tobacco, that warm, comforting sort of spice going on. Very masculine, very mature, but also very kind of cozy and just really inviting, and it is a very nice take on that kind of tobacco vanille. This did separate itself from that Alhambra I had mentioned at the very beginning. It does smell different than that. So like the two of them, even though they're in the same genre and they're trying to maybe clone or dupe the same Tom Ford fragrance, they are different. So it's not necessarily redundant in the sense of like their identical scents, but they are trying to clone the same thing. So it is in that neighborhood. They are in the same genre. But this is very nice. I'm curious to see how this is going to react on my skin. See if like how the performance goes, if the notes kind of stand out a little bit more, because like I said, this is a very kind of spicy style of tobacco fragrance, and just overall curious. So I'm definitely going to do a full review of this one, see how it performs, see how it does on my skin, give you guys the whole details on that. So like and subscribe so you don't miss that video. Awesome pickup. Really glad I got this one. That's Maison Alhambra's Tobacco Touch. All right, so there you have it. That's 3 new Maison Alhambra fragrances that I picked up in a recent haul. My unboxing, first impression of those fragrances. Nice variety. I'm quite happy with all 3. We got that kind of fun, playful, bright peach. We got that kind of flirty, mysterious, slightly boozy style in that lovely cherry. And then we got that really nice, bold, masculine, warm, spicy tobacco fragrance with tobacco touch. So I enjoyed the variety of these ones. They're all really nice fragrances. I like tobacco fragrances, so that is kind of my favorite of the bunch so far, but I'm really curious how that lovely cherry performs off my skin, and I think that bright peach is going to be a lot of fun in the spring and the summer. So overall, I am quite pleased with these. I think for the price points of, what was it, $21 to $23 on the various discounters. Again, links are gonna be down in the description. I think it did really good. I think these are definitely worth checking out. So I'm gonna do full reviews on these ones. Comment down below which one do you wanna see a full review on first. Really appreciate your guys' inputs. And as always, appreciate you. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see y'all next time.